and thank you for celebrating International Observe the Moon Night with us.
Do we get dinner too?
There's some Oreos to make moon phases if you're interested in that. But yeah, so their first speaker tonight is Gregory Keiko, and he's from Dark Sky, Vermont. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm also from Montpelier, so I'm local here. And I grew up in Connecticut, but I was raised in Ontario, north of Toronto. And my first experience of a dark sky was in my 20s, only when I was camping way north in Ontario and on Algonquin Park. I don't know if you know this park, massive park in northern Ontario. You pushed out in a canoe on a night with a new moon, and it's the first time I saw every star from edge to edge, and the Milky Way, and I was caught up in that. So this has been something I've been wanting to promote for a very long time. So we just started a chapter here in Vermont last year, but Dark Sky Vermont has been going, or Dark Sky International has been going since the 1980s. The first chapter was in Yuma, Arizona, and Flagstaff, Arizona as well, one of the darkest areas of all of the United States. So let's just start with a question. What do dark skies mean to you? Anyone?
Then when I can see the stars.
To see the stars, yeah. Anyone else?
Just see the night sky, same thing.
Yeah, the stars, the night sky. Less people, the quiet is also part of it, right? The city has calmed down. Yeah. What else about the night? Dark skies. Good for birds. Bird migrations, they're happening right now. 70%, 80% of birds migrate at night. If they have light, it's pretty dangerous for them. It throws them off. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, good for night sky photography.
Oh, yeah. Oops. How did that? Yeah, here we are. Yeah, like this last slide, Dave Toronto, one of our members, did this, and it's incredible.
That's about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Exposure,
Yeah, but I mean, look at the color he got in that Milky Way, and not too far from here. You know, this is the amazing thing about Vermont. Yeah, so we have birds, migration, also pollinators.
Yep.
How many have good fireflies in your area? Yeah, couple, three. Not everyone. Fireflies need darkness, right? So if you're in a really bright area, I don't know, at the Walmart parking lot, you're not going to see a lot of fireflies in that area. So fireflies need that darkness as well. Pollinators.
What do pollinators do at night?
Moths. They're the moths
right.
at night as well. So actually, there's quite a few working in the darkness. And
I guess I never thought of moths as pollinators, but
yeah, very much. Very much. Yeah, welcome everyone. We're just asking what the dark skies mean to people, and people have been saying, of course, to see the stars and about the biology. There's another aspect of the dark skies that people are really keen about. How many people have seasonal affective disorder here, or know people who get kind of depressed in winter? Yeah, we have our own circadian rhythms, humans. We need those dark skies. That puts us back into our rhythm as well. Yeah, that's human health.
Does that have anything to do with light?
It has everything to do with light. So if you're getting a lot of light from a computer screen during the day, maybe you're reading your phone before you fall asleep, the light's going in your eyes, but just having that darkness, a good chunk of hours in our life where we have darkness, it helps our rhythms.
It helps it? I thought it made you more like depressed.
It depends on the person. I'm not a doctor. Depends on the person. Of course, you'll need some advice from your doctor on this. But a lot of research is coming out of that. Humans need that balance. A lot of seasonal affective disorders are prevalent in cities where people have 24/7 light. You know, you go outside and there's bright light everywhere all the time. Yeah. Yes, Mark.
There's also an increased risk of certain kinds of cancer for people that have their melatonin suppressed. And there's scientific data coming out about that, breast cancer and other types of cancer.
Yeah, that's more cutting edge right now. We're finding out a lot more about that. As well, there's a lot of people who are just affected by blue light, you know, looking at screens. And a lot of our streetlights have that blue light. We have one member, and it's very difficult for her to walk at night here in Montpelier because of that. Yeah. So just being aware of what, you know, 99.9% of human history, we didn't have our artificial light. Our bodies are made for nighttime being dark, daytime being bright. Robert Frost, of course. He has a lot to say about dark skies, one of his most famous poems, perhaps the most famous poem about Vermont. And, you know, here he is stopping at night. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. And then he has this wonderful ending. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. You know, how can you write that poem if you live in a city? You know, that is such a Vermont poem, but you know this place when you read that poem. And the quiet that you were talking about at night. And in winter, when the nights are long, he's captured that really beautifully as well. Really beautifully. And we have the Abenaki, who were traditionally here, as far as we know, before settlers came. One of their earliest songs that was translated is Song of the Stars. And it's a wonderful poem because it's from the point of view of the stars, speaking to us. We are the stars which sing. We sing with our light. We are the birds of fire. We fly over the sky. To me, this is just like, this is how I experience the night. Our light is a voice. We make a road for the spirits to pass over. Among us are 3 hunters, right, who chase a bear. There never was a time when they were not hunting. We look down on the mountains. This is the song of the stars. So this is another poem, just really actually quite of this place too. It has mountains, it has the nighttime, it has hunting, and their understanding of the Big Dipper as well. So let's just want to ask a question. How dark are your nights where you are in your home right now? And I'll just give you a sense. Here's the scale that we use. There's 2 scales. One is called the Bortle scale, which is less precise. 1 to 9. 9 being inner city, New York, Las Vegas, bright, 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 bright. Number 1, middle of the Pacific Ocean, okay? And you're not on a cruise ship, okay? And then there's everything in between. Where would you say your home is on this scale? What number would you place it at? Being, 4 being suburban, rural, and anyone?
You're talking about the parking lot, outside.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about outside.
Outside where you live.
Right.
Yeah, when you go outside your door, can you look up and see a sky like that?
I'd say 4.
You're in a 4?
I can see this.
You're 3? 3? Anyone else? Maybe 4 or 5? So kind of bright where you are, huh? Right there. Yeah, this gives us a sense of how dark it is. When it's super dark, we can see 6,500 stars on average. when you're in the city, 250, right now it's getting to 120 stars in the city. That's where I grew up. That's where I was living before we moved to Vermont. We were in Montreal, you know, just to see the Big Dipper was like amazing, you know. And so I had to detox the city when I came to Vermont. I had to adjust to dark skies and the quiet, those two things. And it was so wonderful. I just felt my body calming down and this whole world opening up to me. Vermont. Well, where are the darkest skies in America? They're out west, right? Nevada, Utah, Arizona. Over here in the far northeast of Maine, there is a dark sky sanctuary called AMC Maine Woods. And that's pretty dark, but there's not a lot in the northeast. Here's the light from a satellite of America. And you can see dark here, light here, a lot of light around the Great Lakes, Toronto, Michigan. Look here where we are. There's New York, Washington, Boston.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, and then here we are kind of up here. And I was looking at satellite pictures of Vermont, and they didn't give us a clear outline, so I tried to draw an outline, but they say we could have dark skies like the number 2 here in Vermont. If you go to the Northeast Kingdom, there's an observatory there in Bortle 2 area, and not too far from here, Groton State Park? Groton State Park. But we're not sure. We need more data, and right now we are working with Vermont State Parks. And we've given all the state park interpreters a little meter where they can test how dark their skies are. And we're now getting data back. And when we can designate our darkest parks in Vermont, we're going to start a campaign to have them designated as dark sky areas. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. One of our big missions here in Vermont is they've got some in Maine. Your friend Doug Arian was absolutely instrumental in getting that going, that particular place. He almost single-handedly did it. So there's some hope here, but you know, you're probably thinking, well, there's Montpelier, kind of bright. Rutland, Burlington. Those are our bright spots here. Okay, since you were a kid, how has your night sky changed?
So few fireflies.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed.
Yeah.
And so few the critters, moths, and used to have them cover your windshield when you drove.
And like bugs around lights and that sort of thing?
You just don't see many. That's what I think.
When I was a kid growing up in California, and we camped every summer for about a month. And, you know, in California it doesn't rain, so you sleep out under the stars. You don't worry about getting rained on. So, you know, we used to see like the Milky Way and all these stars at night when we camped at Lassen or other places in California. And I haven't seen that for so long. And we'd see the shooting stars, and it was wonderful as a kid.
That's so wonderful to hear, yeah. But they've changed now for you.
Yeah.
It's not so accessible.
No, I don't see that here.
Yeah.
And you grew up here, and wonder how it's changed for you.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, how would you characterize how it's changed?
I grew up on a dirt road, a mile from, paved road, and you could just step outside and there was the Milky Way and all the stars. So yeah, and now, you can't help but see satellites. That's what I see. So
Absolutely, and that's another part of what we're doing in Dark Sky International is trying to put in regulations to kind of calm things down in the sky with respect to satellites. Unfortunately, there's been a big setback on that last week. Regulations were lifted on companies like Starlink, Elon Musk's company. And that means that China, who's actually going to put out probably 3 times the amount that Starlink has in the next 10 years, they won't feel like they have to make their satellites non-reflective. what we're getting is the reflection off of them of the sun on the other side. And so it's a big issue where, help us. If you wanted to help us, we're doing a letter writing campaign to whoever we can on this. Things are coming, things are changing so quickly right now in the environment here in America, and it's just hard to keep up. I mean, just losing park rangers because of the cutbacks in the parks. They were our knowledge keepers for the dark skies. They're trained by us, and they can hardly pick up the litter in the parks right now. So things are, it isn't happening like this in other parts of the world. Trust me. We have chapters all over the world, and they're making gains towards making their skies darker, like literally doing it around major towns. We can do this, but right now it's a step back where we are right now in America, and I think at least. Here's Vermont. Here's some charts on Vermont, and between 2012 and 2022, a 10-year period, from what I can find from this website called Light Trends, from satellite data taken every month. Burlington's getting brighter, 1.2% a year. Rutland, 1% a year. Montpelier is getting the fastest, brightest of all places in Vermont right now. We don't know why, to be honest. We don't know why. Maybe used car dealerships have opened up, Walmart's, maybe it's Barrie, we just don't know. But something's happened, and so even right here locally, it seems that it's getting brighter at night. We talked about birds, bird migrations. 70% of birds are migratory. 80% of those that are migratory migrate at night. And here's our flyway, And then this is a famous study. They decided there was just one skyscraper in one night in Chicago because they fully lit it up because everyone was working that night or something. 1,000 bird deaths. That's just an indication of one building during a migratory period.
Worse than cats.
Pardon me?
Worse than cats.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were all at the bottom waiting. So yeah, so right now we're in a period that has been sponsored and promoted by Audubon called Lights Out Vermont. So we're encouraging people to dim your lights, not only in your homes, but asking neighbors or businesses in your area to lower your lights during migratory periods. And so we're in that world right now. We are just beginning to start that campaign in earnest for the next migration in the spring. Talk about pollinators, butterflies, fireflies. Where I live, I'm on Hubbard Park Drive, and when we moved in, we have a street light right in front of our house, and it was a lot of glare. And I asked Green Mountain Power, can you put a shield on that light, on the light that just falls on our property so that the street remains bright? They came out within 2 weeks and did it for free. I mean,
Wow, that's great. That's right.
so if you know somebody that's getting some light on your property from street lights, you might be surprised. I looked up their provisions, and they said actually they're supposed to be supplying shielded light to the residents of Montpelier, but I don't think they've been doing it. And so when you call them up, they say, okay, we'll put it on there. And so they shielded it, and that from June to July was incredible fireflies on our property. And our next door neighbors, none. And we were like the go-to place in the neighborhood. And we're not talking just a few, we're talking clouds of fireflies. And I hope some of you have had that experience of just having it surround. It's a beautiful thing. Fish as well. When there's light, for instance, coming from bridges or above them, they get disoriented of where to lay their eggs, where to migrate. Salmon get disoriented as well. From the International Space Station, one of the brightest things to be seen from the International Space Station on Earth are these big, bright fishing trawlers off of Indonesia. And that's how they catch fish. They shine light into the water, the fish come in, and then they scoop up the fish. And so fishers know this is how you get fish, but it's not good for the fish in our streams here and elsewhere. So we're just trying to help people become more and more aware of that. And of course, turtles, especially sea turtles, we know that they will not find their way back to the ocean when they lay their eggs on shore if there's a bright light from a hotel, a beach hotel or something else nearby. They just won't find their way back very well at all. So it's another big movement from biologists. And we talked about human health as well. Just knowing your biological clock and getting that darkness is so important. And the effects not only just on stress, but as you mentioned, Mark, on cancer as well, and so many other, the rhythms. Our bodies are made for a different kind of ecosystem than this kind of more unnatural one that we have now. And we haven't talked about this, energy consumption, of course. Energy consumption. I mean, if we just lower our lights a little bit, or put our street lights on timers so that, they lower maybe at 11 p.m. or midnight on a Tuesday night, we would save so much money. We could afford to buy, better light bulbs, etc. But
I think the street lights are pretty dim now.
Montpelier's pretty good. I mean,
It's
for
really low.
yeah, and
You can't really see the road when the lights, the vehicles can blind you because there's
well, this is what I wanted to ask.
vehicles.
Montpelier, yeah, I've noticed is a kind of a dark town, and I thought that's pretty good. But I have trouble seeing when I'm walking and driving, and I'm wondering, I'm thinking it's the type of lights we have. They're glary, not only the car lights, but the street lights themselves. What we find from glaring lights is that it's actually less safe, even at low amounts for pedestrians and drivers. Can't quite see your way around. And when you have older eyes like me, it's even worse, So, but yes, energy, the amount, that actually begins the economic argument tends to be the driver to have a city change all their light bulbs and their lighting.
They weren't like that before, in the day, where they were so bright.
Oh, no. You know why they're bright now?
No.
Because incandescent lights were bad for the environment, and we shifted them all to LEDs in all the cities, right? And they were super cheap to run. So business managers of the city, or city managers said, let's brighten up the city. It's pretty cheap. So they brightened everything up because it actually was lower cost than the other light bulbs, but they didn't consult with anybody. So we have some unbelievably bright little towns in Vermont and elsewhere where they just didn't know. And now we're trying to kind of roll it back and say, hey, as you replace your light bulbs into the future, can you think about maybe putting warm lights in, rather than cool, less glaring lights, put a timer on them, shield them downwards so they're not pointing up to the sky. Little things like, it's pretty easy to make these changes. They're not expensive.
Is that why car lights seem to be so bright now?
Totally.
I get blinded because, my car isn't as high as I guess a lot of cars are.
Oh, but the lights on cars need to be regulated. The regulations were taken off beginning really with the Reagan era. A lot of regulations on just all the cars that come from all the manufacturers around the world. They're everywhere, and it's slight adjustments. Sometimes they're pointing up a little and down. Sometimes they have a wider brightness and smaller. We have no general data-driven, changes to car lights, and we want to work on that as well. I mean, it's a safety issue,
Is it a cost issue?
Well, for manufacturers, yeah, I bet. But a lot of it is just lack of awareness. How many cars have, cool headlights, right? They're just trying to sell their car because it looks.
Yeah, I don't mean to get off the topic. I think a lot of it has to do with greed across the board.
Yeah.
Where
I would
they
agree.
can save money and
I would
like
agree.
the hotels and things. If it's going to bring people in, the bright light. Well, we don't really necessarily care about the rest of what's going on. And then it goes into how do you kind of able to prevent something like that from happening, because there's somebody above that's saying, no, we're not listening to you.
Yeah, and for some people, you know, a wonderful experience is to go to Las Vegas. And they say, hey, you know, we should have that in our town. And, you know, Las Vegas, you know, it's one of the brightest cities in the world, and that's wonderful if that's what you want to do, but I think a lot of people kind of would prefer not having every town like Las Vegas. So here's this general chart. By the way, I have handouts at our table. We have a table out front you can take away on this, and you can share them with your neighbors, etc. But this is like the worst. Lights going everywhere. Bad where you have it slightly shielded for a street light. Better having it going down is much better, and on a timer. That's what we're trying to aim at. And then warm light, much better than cold light for our eyes, but also for pollinators and birds and everything else for humans. And then in our neighborhoods, and I'm sure many of you know about this, you know, with your neighbors, some neighbors have lights on their outside of their house and it's bright, and but some will have it pointing down, and it's just as safe. It's just as safe. In fact, even safer. So here's a photograph someone took. I think it was during a power outage of a typical house. Look how bright it is during the power outage. Milky Way all of a sudden appeared.
In terms of migration, if you're putting in all the different things, if you're putting the light just where needed, that must not eliminate.
It doesn't.
confusion
I mean,
birds.
we're not against lighting. We need lighting.
Yeah.
So it's about responsible lighting. So it's just kind of dimming it down, making it warm, making sure we're safe,
Right.
but no more than that.
But I'm thinking like in that
But-
building in Chicago where they were working at night, like they have the lights on, do you put the shades down or?
Now buildings are have electronic shading, maybe even built into the window itself
Right.
to
That
adjust
makes-
with the lighting. We have new, you know, ecosystems that are aware of this, but not every building and not every developer wants to do that. So shades
Tons
and
of apartment buildings.
yeah, it's just.
It's depressing.
So I mean, what we're finding is those who are coming to us to work with Dark Sky International and Dark Sky Vermont are the smallest towns in Vermont. And they want to make their town a dark sky approved town. We have West Windsor who's working on it. Charlotte, it wants to be a dark sky city. We have another, Dummerston. And so all three, in the next year or two, they're putting in little things to change bulbs. And we're hoping that we work from these smaller cities. And eventually we see something growing in Vermont that will come to Montpelier or Burlington, rather than going to Montreal and Boston and trying to convince them to lower their lights. I mean, they do have their committees. They're working hard. But at least that's what I'm finding here in Vermont. And it gives me a lot of hope because you can see something actually happening. You go to these towns, you say, oh, this is nice. You know, you can see the stars and it seems safe, you know. So we talked already about glare.
Wow.
So this is something that Dark Sky International often says, more lighting is safer, people say, is a myth. In reality, well-designed lighting is safer. And they often show this photo. This is somebody's side yard, glare light here. But when you put your hand over the glaring light, all of a sudden, there was a person standing there that you couldn't see. You know? We also know that thieves actually like to have light so that they can find the lock and open the windows. Dark alleys actually are safer, we're finding, in cities than bright alleys. Now, if you're I mean, I know a lot of you would have safety concerns in some places in cities, maybe even right here. It isn't about eliminating light, but just keeping it safe, you know, is what we're talking about. But here's that glare that we all know when we're driving, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I thought about this a long time back when I was a kid. Our outdoor light was a yellow bulb.
Yeah. Incandescent was great for that too.
That was
But-
wasn't supposed to attract
Yeah.
bugs.
I remember, yeah, they're painted yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the problem of light clutter, which is just kind of too many things all at once, all over the place. That disorients people, especially when we get older. You know, New York, whatever. You might say Church Street in Burlington, I don't know, in Christmas time. But we have some streets here in Montpelier. You know, we have the luminaries at Christmas Eve. I don't know if you know about these, but in the Meadows district on Clarendon Avenue, people will just put out these little jugs, like plastic jugs, and you put a little electric light inside, and it's low light. It's very beautiful. People like to walk. We talk to each other. You get to know the neighbors. Different ways of working with light. Yes.
What do you think about all the bridges, the city
Yeah.
bridges, and
I
there's
was
like
wondering about
7
that.
bridges,
Are they
soon to
on
be
the
9
timer?
bridges that are gonna be lit up.
I've approached people who were, we got started after that project was going. And some of our members joined because of the project, but we weren't invited into those conversations because somebody had a vision.
Are they on a timer or?
They are from, because I used to work for them.
Okay, yeah.
They are from dusk till like 10 o'clock at night, but they're bright.
Yeah, my back of the note calculations is they're 10 times brighter than our zoning, actually.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not sure if people want to hear that. Because after the floods, the argument is we needed to have something of joy in this city because it was pretty dark days. And I get it. But, you know, let's have a conversation about that. So they're LED, maybe they can be adjusted. We don't know. We're hoping we can open up that conversation somehow. But what you're seeing now, as far as I understand, is temporary lighting. It's all being replaced with permanent lighting.
Really?
Right.
So, and they have a $200,000 budget for this. So we don't know what the brightness of that is, what the quality of that is. And again, I would love to be part of that conversation. You know, it's just, sometimes this is just a thing, you know, it's something we can control in a city that feels like it's out of control when the floods are coming through. So I get it. So if you have the ear of anybody on council, please write to them or talk to them or meet them whenever you can and raise this, and we'd be happy to talk with them. I'm coming to the end because we have a talk after me, but I just wanted to put this picture up of satellites. Satellites. This is over, I think this was a 5-hour open shutter on a camera. That's what's happening now with big concern for us. Big concern. So what are we doing? We're talking about, getting people to fall in love with the dark again. That's our number one thing as we get. So we're talking poetry, we're getting the arts. We want people to fall in love because it's a wonderful thing. People are scared of the night, especially in the cities. So that's number one, public awareness just on what we can do. Try some partnerships, corporations, whatever, or cities, and then eventually get to policy because we all know you can have the best policies in the world, but if you have an administration who doesn't care about the policies, they won't be put into place. So we just want to just get the conversation going. That's what we're doing with Dark Sky Vermont. We already talked about home lighting. I'll skip through that. Here we are claiming our dark sky places here in Vermont. I've already talked about that. So we want to get some certified places. There's this thing called astrotourism. Do you know this? It's like the biggest trend in tourism right now. People wanting to go to dark skies.
Isn't there a place in Pennsylvania?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Or was it Virginia?
And if you go to the tourism website of Utah, it's all about come to see our dark skies. That's all they promote. One park has 5 million visitors in like a year just for their dark
And
skies.
we're City of Bridges.
Yes,
That's what that effort is all about, to put Montpelier on the map, the city is Bridges.
I know.
It's just interesting, I was involved in that and like never crossed my mind.
Yeah. And another motto was, I don't know, we'll be the bright spot in Vermont or something. So here are some optional parks that we might look at. We've already mentioned them.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, and
We can stay for-
you know, Vermont has this amazing history of our ecosystems and protecting. Just recently, the Biodiversity Protection Act, 50% of state land will be protected. That will be really helpful for us. And please continue to support our billboard ban. We can't be complacent. Advertisers and businesses do want that eye space of our land. So when it happens, call your representatives. This is what we'll get if we let it go. Big, bright billboards. And we've had it since 1937. Brilliant. 2 other states have it, Alaska.
Yeah,
and-
We're at risk for this?
I haven't heard of
Is it-
anyone
is
trying
there a
to
risk?
list it.
Is there a risk? Yeah,
I
it's,
haven't heard anything.
yeah, just recently these businesses come up and they put
Yeah,
little,
on River Valley.
and people phone up and say, hey, sorry, you can't do that, and they get taken down. I mean, if you've noticed in Stowe, it's kind of just getting, there's a few signs if you drive up through Stowe but this is what we love, right?
Yeah.
That's our way. And here's the actual place here's my house, and they put this little baffle on the light, and I was able to get. So we have lighting ordinances we can refer to. And as I was saying, we have International Dark Sky Week as well in April. Lights Out Vermont right now, and then again for the next migration in the spring. We'll be advertising more next spring. And then 3rd week in April, yeah, International Dark Sky Week, where we have events, and especially around new moon nights, where we get out like the telescopes like we have out here, and we can see really dark skies and everything. So that's actually all I wanted to say, and I just want to invite you all to join us if you can. That would be great, and I'll take any questions until.
Not a question.
Yeah.
2 things.
Yeah.
One, can you do a front porch, since you're in Montpelier, front porch forum posting about these resources? I'd be happy to write it and work with you.
Let's work together.
And also
That would be great.
Work for the Bridge, the local paper.
Okay.
We need an article about this.
Yeah.
So do you have a card, or just,
Yep.
I gotta write that down?
Feel free to write down, or you can come by the table and I'll write it down for you, and we can talk.
Right on this thing.
Yeah. So, you know, join us. We're trying to do things together and just talk about this and raise awareness. And we're here to support you. Okay? So tell us how we can support you in your neighborhood, local business that's a little bit too bright. Let us know. Any questions? Anything?
Just one,
Yeah.
how do you know when they're thinking about putting up a billboard?
Well-
Or how do they get past not recognizing it's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. In Vermont, it's kind of vigilante billboards. They don't get a blessing from the city. So, and then citizens have to call up. But if we're not calling up, then they accumulate. And that's what I was saying. Like the drive around to Stowe, I'm noticing bigger and bigger signs, brighter. And what do we care about here?
Well, it draws people in,
They think.
And they might get more, and more is usually a problem. And you can make people want to come here, not
Yeah.
make them, they want to come here
Yeah.
because it's different and unique.
Yeah.
Let's see this, we don't see this anywhere else.
In the 20s and 30s, that was a vision for Vermont. When cattle and sheep collapsed, this was our economic driver, and one of the first states to do that. Let's bring people here. First off for our springs, for healthy waters, and then skiing and everything else. But we're a big draw. I mean, why would we abandon that? Especially in this time, right?
It's almost like it slips past us and we're not really aware that it's happening. I wouldn't have been aware that this is going on.
Yeah. It's just bit by bit, and all of a sudden you think, what happened with the skies of my youth?
Yeah, because it happens and you don't know it, and nobody says anything to you,
Mhm.
and only a certain percentage see it and know what's going on.
Yeah.
You can only tell so many.
Yeah.
And so some people don't hear of it, and then you don't know how to stop it, because they've already gotten maybe the okay somehow through another channel without people recognizing it's even going on.
Yeah.
And that's sad. So you find out through you, or
Yeah, we can, we have our membership is around, I know we're coming to an end, our membership is around 50 people right now already throughout Vermont, so, you know, our members will kind of get together and they're posting on their local front porch forums about activities, local and all that. And we're just trying our best. We're open to all ideas. We need help on all fronts. So.
Does it help by picking up just the phone, simple thing, you know?
That's.
I mean, I know a lot of people do email as well, you know.
Phone is
some
typically more effective than email.
Could you get a person on the other end and they can't just.
Yep.
Right.
And
Is there a phone number attached to where you can call somebody?
we have no kind of way of doing that, but typically you call a representative on your neighborhood and that sort of thing, and then you tell us how it worked for you. Basically that's what we're doing. We're watching how other cities and towns are doing it, and then they come back and they say, okay, you know, we set up a table outside at a fair, and we meet the representatives that way, and it's face to face, and that's where they get the ball rolling.
Okay, so this thing is kind of just coming to light, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a conversation to try to pull
Yep.
it together before.
Yeah, we're just using all of our shared knowledge right now to get things moving, you know.
Well, thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Weller from the Kellogg Hubbard Library. I think I already introduced myself to a lot of you, but we are really excited to have Dr. Patrick Welly here, who works at NASA Goddard in Maryland and also at the University of Maryland. And he's going to tell us how to go to the moon.
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks everybody. Thanks for being here and having me to the library. Thank you to the library for having me come to talk. I'm a geologist and a planetary scientist, and I work with folks on a lot of different aspects of how to get ready for crewed missions to the moon. So I'm going to share some of that with you today, and have plenty of time for questions as we celebrate International Observe the Moon Night. So NASA likes to talk in these kind of grandiose mission charts, and so right now what we're talking about for going to the moon is part of this broader mission of going to send astronauts to the moon, yes, but then also onto Mars. And so we're in this first phase of the moon to Mars architecture, and potentially onto other bodies in the solar system, which is very exciting. The Artemis mission, the Artemis is what we're calling kind of our generation's Apollo. It's a suite of missions to the moon, some robotic and some with crew, and then some will land on the moon. And so we have Artemis 1 was a mission that was just robotic. There weren't any people on Artemis 1, and that was success in 2022. It flew around the moon and then back to Earth and landed safely. And that tested navigation systems and all kinds of things on the spacecraft. Artemis 2 is going to have people on it. There's a crew that's been assigned, and they're going to hopefully launch in February or between February and April in 26. So pretty soon. And some of the slides I'll have here for you today have some of those crew in it and how they're preparing to go to the moon. Beyond that, we have Artemis 3, which should be our first landed mission to the surface, and then potentially more missions to the surface to build up a more sustained presence. All the time learning stuff about the moon, but then looking towards missions farther away to Mars and elsewhere, trying to learn lessons of how to travel in outer space. And a question that people have a lot is, why do we do any of this? And NASA talks about 3 pillars of why go to the moon, and they are for science, and that's kind of personally what I'm most interested in is the questions that we can ask of the moon to better understand our own existence, how our planet works, how the solar system works. But there's also national posture reasons, right? We want to do this because we're proud of the things that our country and our engineers and scientists can accomplish. And then there's inspiring the next generation of people to kind of come up after us and do big things as well. So those are the 3 big reasons. I'm going to focus mostly on the science parts, but we can certainly talk about those other ones if people are interested. And so there's a joke about how do you get to Carnegie Hall. Perhaps has anybody heard this joke? It's a man walking down the road, and he asks a woman for directions. How do I get to Carnegie Hall? And she says, practice, practice, practice. And that's kind of what that's how this talk is going to be too. How do we get to the moon? Well, we have to practice things, right? We have to practice. Practice how to use the tools, how to drive vehicles around, how to operate with crew, some on the moon, and then a team of scientists on Earth, and we have to practice all these things. But before all that, we have to ask the right questions of the moon. We have to figure out why we're going for science reasons, so that we know the right places to go, and then we have to build all the stuff and find the right people. So the science questions that are kind of the big picture, why we care and why we need to go back to the moon. Haven't we been there already? We really want to know how the Earth-Moon system formed. I talked about this with a few folks out in the lobby, but does anybody know the kind of current idea of how the moon formed? No? Yes? You know? You raise your hand? No? So the idea is that before there was any life or even really maybe even continents on Earth, so way back when, 4 billion years or so ago, maybe a little bit maybe 3.9, there was a big impact. The Earth was bigger than it was today. We didn't have a big moon, but some Mars-sized object wandered into our region of the solar system, and we had a big impact. And then the material left over from that impact, some of it came back to Earth, some of it stayed up in space, and the stuff that stayed up in space, a lot of that material formed our moon. So we share a lot of the same materials. This is a result from the Apollo days. We noticed that a lot of the isotopes from the moon samples and our isotopes from rocks here on Earth were very similar, and this was a theory that they came up with to explain that. But we need some more information. We want to go back to the moon and test some of the hypotheses and test some of the things that we, if that was true, then what, right? And so we can go back to the moon and answer some of those then what questions. Another idea is that the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn, when they formed, they were closer to the sun. Maybe not closer to the sun than we are, but closer to the sun than they currently are. And they messed up, they impacted the orbits of the rocky planets by being that close to the sun. And then for some reason they migrated farther out in the solar system. We think we can test that with another mission to the moon. When did the surfaces of rocky planets form? So this is the differentiation question. So differentiation means we have a solid core that's different material than the mantle, that's different material than the crust. And so we can ask that question if we go back to the moon. And then how have these planets collided with each other throughout the history of the solar system? If we go to a big impact crater, maybe we can understand that. And that's kind of the answer here, right? If we go, one of the best places to answer all these questions is a big, really old impact basin on the moon. And a good candidate for that is a place called South Pole Aitken Basin. And so here's a topographic map of the far side of the moon, and this region here on the southern part of the far side of the moon. And this is a giant impact basin. So not a basin big enough to form have another moon forming event or anything, but a really big impact. And we think if we can study this really big impact, we can answer a whole bunch of those questions from the previous slide. And so the South Pole is here, and this basin is called Aitken. And so the shorthand for where Artemis mission is going to land is the South Pole Aitken Basin. So somewhere in this region. We haven't picked the exact spots yet, and that is an interesting story all in itself. But this is kind of the target region. And we think that the text here isn't really as important as the message, that we think by going to the South Pole Aitken Basin, we can do a lot of help to answer some of these questions. Okay, so practice. So what do we need to practice for going to the moon? We can't just go to the garage and find our rocket ship and go on all by ourselves. We have to assemble teams. Yes, sir.
You first have to make sure everything's right and make sure you don't mess things on the Earth.
That's right. That's a really good point. And so we need to practice so we don't to make sure everything is right. We don't wreck everything on Earth. Thank you. what I'm going to show you now are some pictures of people practicing stuff, and I'd like to take comments from the audience of what do you think we're practicing. So what kind of practice do you think this is? Yes?
Launching a rocket ship.
Launching a rocket ship. Not quite. That's going to be later, but this one's not quite launching a rocket ship. Yeah? Coring, yeah. So we're calling this tools practice. So this is Zena is in the International Space Station right now, but this is her practicing with a drive tube. So this is a section of tube that they're hammering into the ground with a hammer, very heavy for some reason hammer, and what they're hammering into is this volcanic tephra, so ash and pumice, and then underneath that is ice that was covered by this volcanic ash and tephra, and we're trying to get a sample of the ice with this drive tube. We think this kind of geometry is present on the moon. We have maybe impact ejecta, stuff that came out of impact craters on top of ice, and we might be able to access it this way. The picture on the right is a thermal camera. So these are all temperatures, and they're doing the same thing. They've got a drive tube, and they're pulling out cold stuff. I guess in this one is warm stuff because this was not the same site, but they're doing the same test. They're pulling warm stuff out of the ground at night. So pretty cool. Yeah, we have to practice using the tools so that the things don't get stuck, so the astronauts know how to do it, and we know how the information comes. You know what the information is as it comes back to Earth. All right, what kind of practice is this? Yes, in the back.
It's practicing digging holes.
Digging holes. Not quite. We've got little orange boxes, and we've got this white box over here. This is science instrument practice. So these are ground penetrating radars. So the idea here is you don't have to dig a hole because you use this box to look at see what's underneath the surface. And then on the far left is a seismometer that Andre, and he's one of the alternates for the Artemis 2 crew, and he was practicing placing this instrument on the surface. And so the scientist that built this instrument wanted him to put it in a particular way so that north was up and you could tell where everything was, so that the seismometer, we could understand the data from the seismometer. So he's practicing that. All right, this is a fun one. What kind of practice is this one? Yes?
Launching the rocket.
Launching the rocket? Not quite. Keep that answer. Yes?
Looking for a telescope.
Looking for telescope. Cool. This one we call it flyby practice. So these guys, this is the crew that's going to actually fly by the moon. This is the Artemis 2 crew, and there's a blow-up model of the moon out here, and then they're in their capsule, a mock-up model of their capsule, and they're practicing what the moon's going to look like to them as they fly by in their capsule. So you can see a little shadow of it here. That's how big it's going to be in their window as they fly by the moon. And so they're practicing taking pictures. This is the path they're going to take. So they launch from the Earth on number 1, which is where's 1? One's right there. They launch and they go around and they come by the moon. And then here's the closest point. Closest approach is 11. And they go all the way back to Earth, and then they splash down in the ocean. Pretty good. But all this practice takes, first they start in the classroom and they talk to the scientists about what they should expect. And they've got these little flip books of features on the moon that they might see and questions that the scientists have about the features, because nobody's ever seen it. Nobody's ever seen this part of the moon this close before. When the Apollo astronauts went around the back side of the moon, it was usually in shadow because they wanted to maximize the sunlight on the near side. But these guys aren't going to land, so they can go around the moon at what's optimum sunlight for the far side of the moon, and they're going to get some really good pictures. We're really excited about that.
Is that by satellite?
The flyby will be their capsule. That'll be their spacecraft. Yep. Okay, what kind of practice is this one? Yes.
Rock and mineral identification.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, this is rock identification and description practice. So we're in Iceland, we're in the highlands of Iceland, and these guys are not very convinced of what I'm trying to tell them about these rocks. But they came around in the end. We're practicing what kinds of things on a rock are interesting to the scientist, and we're trying to give them a whole bunch of education on what are the important features of a rock to describe, so that these guys who are fighter pilots and they have other jobs that they had before becoming astronauts can come up to speed on the stuff that's interesting about the rocks. Okay, here we go. What kind of practice is this one?
Watching the rocket ship.
Rocket ship practice, yeah. So this is launch practice, and this is the SpaceX Falcon Heavy, and they're landing the stages. You might have seen some of this stuff. Pretty wild. This is kind of the technology that they're going to use to actually land on the moon. They won't not with these boosters, but with the SpaceX lander. So we have to make a whole bunch of Falcon Heavy launches to go meet up with the astronauts in orbit to get the lander ready. So pretty cool. Question?
How many miles away is the moon?
Oh man, I don't remember. A lot. It takes a couple of days.
Sorry, we have a question.
Question in the back.
What his question is.
When it starts to go up, it has fire.
Yeah, it does. A lot of fire, and that's what's happening as the fuel burns up. The fuel burns up, and the rocket goes up, and then there's the fire on the bottom. Another question?
When it gets higher, in one of the pieces of the rocket ship break off.
Yeah, that's right. They break off. These pieces will break off, and then they'll fly back to Earth.
Almost 240,000 miles.
Thank you. 240,000 miles. Thank you, Google. Okay, what kind of practice is this? In the front.
Landing the rocket ship and getting out.
Yeah, landing the capsule
Back over.
and get it back on Earth. This is Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego, and this is the Artemis 2 crew practicing getting out of the capsule. And the Navy guys that are gonna get them out of the ocean are practicing the same thing. So these different teams that have totally different backgrounds, totally different goals, they're coming together to practice this splashdown and rescue practice. Yes.
When a rocket ship goes in the water, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it's done. It's gonna float, and then its job is over. Okay, so we've talked about science questions, building stuff, practicing, tools, vehicles, operations, and science. It's a lot of different aspects that have to all come together. Yes, question.
Have a rocket ship ever landed not in the water?
Yeah, there was a rocket ship, the capsule that sampled from a comet. I think it was a comet named Genesis that landed out in the desert. Nope, and they didn't want it to get wet, so they landed it out there. There weren't any people on board though. So I hope the message I wanted to get across is that to get to the moon, for anybody to get to the moon, for us to be successful with this mission, it takes a whole lot of teams practicing whatever the plan is, and then also practicing whatever the anomalies might be. So when things kind of go sideways, and so that we can react to them quickly and safely. And so it takes a lot of different teams to come together for a successful mission. So I hope when you get a chance to go out and look at the moon through the telescopes, you think about some of this stuff and how complicated it is to get there, but that it's taking a whole bunch of us to work together to do it. Thank you. Question?
Is there any rocket ship that has accidentally gone in the water?
Yes, that happens sometimes, but we try really hard not to make it so that doesn't happen. Well, thank you, everybody.